Hold on. Welcome back to the conversation with Harold and Dave. We had a presidential debate yesterday. We're going to talk about it, whether you were raised in a middle class family or you're an immigrant who eats cats and dogs. Let's get into it.
It's the conversation. It's the conversation. Y'all ready? Y'all ready? Let's go. Let's go. No filter, no restrictions. You about to get my opinion in this purest form. So my words, don't try to spin them. What I said is what I said. And what I said, I meant it. The gloves are off now when I'm coming out swinging. So engage in verbal combat, but you better be ready. Cause this here for me is light work, even if the topic's heavy. I'm ready for it all with no running from nothing. You just take the time to digest what I put in, no rushing. But time is moving, don't waste it. You want the real, come and face it. Come sit and talk to me if you want it straight without a chaser. And it might burn a little when you step on up to taste it. But it's nothing harsh, I promise. Just a little conversation.
Welcome back to the conversation with Harold and Dave, where we talk all things government, political, and try to talk the other things, but we never get there. You guys, I mistakenly made an episode called Your Presidential Mount Rushmore, forgetting, because I try to forget debates that involve certain people. I forgot there was a debate, and then I remembered there was a big debate, and then Dave texted me to remind me that there was a debate. So let's talk about the debate. So I'm just going to start off.
Then you didn't text me back, so I'm ready to talk about Mount Rushmore.
I said yes, Dave. You want me to put it on live stream, huh? You want me to put it on live stream?
No.
Okay.
I'm always.
I gotta fact check you.
Let's talk about the debate.
I gotta fact check you, Dr. David Trump Hayes. I gotta fact check you.
I might log off now. There's a limit. There is a limit.
Okay, I'm sorry. I take that back.
Well, actually, you're pretty close friends, so the limit for you is pretty goddamn high. I think you'd have to draw blood first.
I want to say something real quick, and then I'm not gonna ask a question. I just want both of you to open about your responses to what you watched last night. You know, and I'm not faulting Kamala for this. I feel like the last true debate I saw was Obama versus McCain. And the reason why I say that is because they both talked policies. They both talked what they were going to do. Ever since Hillary Trump, I feel like both debaters do get into what the other person is, didn't do, is not going to do. And I saw less and less. Kamala got it going, after a while. But in the beginning, I really was scratching my temples over just hearing he, she. And I'm like, yeah, but what are you doing? And I just feel like the last one I saw where that was from beginning to end was Obama McCain. But anywho, let's throw it to the experts. Who wants to start?
Dave, you got it, bro.
All right, well, okay. I think when this is something that is coming up, and that there wasn't a lot of substance, and at a certain level, I'm like, well, you always are left hanging. There are two major disincentives to somebody at a debate giving a direct answer, right? Actually giving an answer on a policy level. One is you open up to criticism, right? You open yourself up to cross-examination, and usually these questions are not easy. You're not getting a softball question here, right? So it's a question of, should you be swinging at a really, at a curveball? And I'm going to leave that analogy there. For instance, Kamala Harris, absolutely, yes, she did not answer the question at the very beginning. Are people better off? Do you think they're better off than they were a few years ago? She pivoted to what she was going to do, because if she had said that, she would have had a really, hard time. There's no right answer to that, right? Because we know that people perceive themselves to not be in a good position. And the people she needs to reach probably feel like they have a problem. So she went and pitched to them what she thought her best policy thing would be. With regard to details of policy, she did there actually give some details. In other cases, she was kind of, light on details. In an American election, it presidential candidates can't really get too specific because they aren't being elected with a parliament, right? They aren't necessarily going to have a majority in Congress. They probably won't. And they also aren't, even if they have a majority in their party, they're not in charge of it. And so Congress makes the policy. And so a president, in getting their agenda passed, presidents have to deal with Congress. And if you have too many flags that you've planted in your campaign, you're going to have a very difficult time compromising, right? And so very often critical details are left for future negotiation with Congress, and you're left wondering, all right, what is the income level going to be that you trigger something, or what are some facts? So we, in our system, we have a lot of reasons that a smart, savvy politician will try to either pivot away from a question or be light on details. That's just our country. That's just the way we are.
So, Dave, somebody might say, well, if what you just said, then what's the point? What's the point of the debate if candidates are going to be allowed to avoid questions, only get softball questions, and if they get asked hard questions, they have to kind of navigate it the way that you're saying that they have to navigate?
Well, one is, what is the point of a debate, right? In posing that question, you're taking it that debates are thus sacrosanct. There is a question of, are these things actually very useful? However, the answer that most people go is that, hey, we want to see the candidates. We want to see how they deal with a tough question. We want to see how they think on their feet. We want to see them side by side. We want to judge their temperament. Because what we're doing with electing a president is hiring the person that will make the decision. We are hiring the person that is going to go into the negotiations with Congress, that is going to go have a certain amount of latitude as an executive. And so we want to know about them. And unless you think debates are entirely beside the point, if I think the argument is that they do provide this experience, this interactive experience, at least with the moderators and each other, that gives us a better understanding of who the candidate is. Who are we electing to do the job? Even if we don't know exactly what decision they're going to make, we kind of get an insight into their character, their thinking or lack thereof, and I think that's the value of it. And I got to say, the two debates we had this year, we learned a lot about the people involved in both of them.
All right. Well, while the world is blowing up, let's go to Harold, because the world is blowing up.
And they're eating them cats and dogs.
World War III, don't forget that.
Well,
That's coming.
I'm sorry.
Well,
When he said the whole world is blowing up, I'm like, just go, Harold. I can't.
well, I mean, I'm going to go back to Dave's original response to the question that Kamala Harris, I'm sorry, did not answer directly. And I think she would have been better served by saying, looking at the economic metrics, yes, we are in a better position. However, due to price gouging in stores, in some instances, in gas, from the gasoline industry or petroleum industry, people are not feeling the benefits of those economic metrics. So it gives her a two-sided response to not so much what people feel, because again, I can't tell you how you feel. There's some people that are still doing great in this economy. I mean, they're doing very well. But then there are others that are concerned about, i.e., even taxes going up, which they don't realize we're still under the 2017 tax plan. But that's a whole nother set of circumstances. And so this is why facts over feelings becomes a real issue when we're dealing with these questions and how they should be properly responded to. Now, as far as the debacle, I won't call it a debate, the debacle more so than anything else. I actually, as it went on for quite some time and this circular behavior continued, I actually drifted off and fell asleep because it was just too much to continue to just stay up and listen to. When, as Dave pointed out, there was not as much substance that should have been presented as I would have liked. Because again, when you start going off on these tangents, and there's, one of the two persons never answered any questions to my understanding or to my realization. Maybe somebody can point out something that he did answer accurately or directly. But, I saw a lot of conspiracy theories or responses thrown out that just did not bode well for me, and it made me not want to continue watching the event because it was just, again, I felt like I was losing brain cells in that whole process. So, in
No,
my
well,
response,
he
go
did
ahead.
make some corrections. He set the record straight that he did not mean that he lost by a whisker. That was sarcasm. Okay, he didn't mean that seriously. That was
Yeah.
sarcasm.
But nobody detected sarcasm in his voice. See,
Mhm.
sarcasm, you can't get up. You'll hear it not just being what's being said, but how it's being expressed.
There was only one thing that really made me angry in that debate, and it's the same thing we've talked about on this show before. And I'm kind of getting so sick of it. And being a person who grew up as an African American in the South of the United States, you always feel when people categorize you, right? Just, it's not even being an African American. Dave doesn't want to be lumped in with white racists, but people will do that. I don't want to be lumped in with every African American who is not, is a detriment to society, but people will do that. I am so sick of painting every illegal immigrant as some rapist, killer. It's just so disingenuous. It's so disrespectful. And the supporters of this man on Facebook, especially, who keep talking about, please, we need to respect him, and everyone's so disrespectful. You want one of the most disrespectful presidents we've ever had to garner respect. And it's just baffling to me. I'm just truly baffled.
It is interesting. Just for well, first of all, let me be clear. I watched this debate. I was riveted because I was watching a master class. Kamala Harris just showed up and told us, showed how to do a debate. I started out saying she didn't answer a question, but my point would be like, right, because she knows what she's doing. She didn't answer that question. She sidestepped it because she needed to. And then when Trump, when she was asked the tough question about about the border, why didn't Biden uh, and you, part of that administration, shut the border down earlier? She did her, we had a plan, and we had legislation, and Trump vetoed it. And then right when he was ready to land on her, right, because that's his topic, that's the issue where she's vulnerable, she hit him with the comment about crowd size. She just pushed the button, and he went off on a tangent. And instead of, because I'm sitting there dreading what he's going to say, I am already hearing in my head what Trump is going to say, and thinking, because she doesn't have a good answer for this, because there's not a good answer for this, right? Because I think Democrats were slow to come around and go, oh, actually, this is a problem for us. I think there was a delay in seeing the issue as being a problem, and but for whatever reason, she just, I saw this answer. I saw Trump landing on her like a ton of bricks, and she comes out with that other thing and totally diffuses him. This was on a level in my mind. In the first debate, Biden, I thought the biggest screw up that he made in that first debate was when he was asked about abortion. Biden stammered out something about taking care of women and women dying, and then he mentioned Trump going to the funeral of someone who was killed by an illegal immigrant. I'm like sitting there like, did you just pivot away from the issue that you win on to the issue you lose on, and your other guy is his favorite thing to talk about? And what Kamala did the opposite. She got him to pull a Biden on that. And I just sat there. I stood up and cheered. I did my own wave. I was like, my God, what we just saw was so masterful, right? Now, you might say that could Kamala have said we were seeking a legislative solution because we don't think the executive should be peremptorily closing the border, that we wanted a legislative thing. We also wanted the resources that would come from a bipartisan law. And therefore we waited. And then when that didn't happen, we went ahead and did this other thing. That would have been that was the answer that she could have given. But it was far better to trigger him and get him there. And so I want a president who wins.
Harold, follow
I'm
that.
sorry.
I want a
Well,
president.
no, I mean,
Go ahead.
she brilliantly chummed the waters, and he smelled the blood, and he went over to bite what wasn't there. And he ended up doing himself a disservice in that whole process, and going where she wanted him to go. I mean, every piece of bait she threw out there, he jumped at it, unfortunately, to his demise, and it made him look ridiculous. And then I think it also frustrated him. And there was also talk that he had an earpiece that someone may have been feeding him, or trying to feed him responses. But if they did, and that was a part of their, I guess, scheme, it failed miserably. And they need to fire that person as well.
Talk about Haitians eating dogs.
But that's the other thing I was going to say. Even with my brothers and sisters in the Haitian community, some of them are supporting this man who is blatantly and openly disrespected them on many levels when it comes to that. Because again, I don't know what they see. I don't see it. I see something totally opposite. I don't see a benefit. I see the racism. I see the xenophobia. I see all of that. But yet and still, these individuals who are immigrants, he continues to press the notion that they're going to be deported. And with that deportation, I recall them asking the question how he planned to do it, and he pivoted away from that almost as fast as he went to the whole eating cats and dogs, comment that he made. He jumped completely there real quick, but he pivoted just as quickly away from how he planned to deport all of these quote unquote immigrants in our country.
And I think Keone's first question was, what happened to respecting immigrants and stuff. And I did see a clip. I didn't see the whole report, but there was an interviewer in Springfield, Ohio, at a plant that employs Haitians, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot of the Haitians that are there for a plant, and there's a worker program. So I'm not 100% sure. It seems like they aren't illegal, right? They're there under some documentation. And the plant manager was saying, they show up and they work and they are dedicated. And he was just raving about what great workers they were. And it was kind of like, if we could get other people, we probably would. But he was just saying, these are great, hardworking people. We love them. And, that goes back to, the American immigrant past, right? We get people in.
Well, we do that fear mongering of taking our jobs. It's not. We talked about this before too, and I tried to break this down to someone the other day. A long time ago, it was Black people are taking all the jobs, right? When we moved to certain places, and when Black people mostly attained a social status to where they could be doctors, lawyers, car salesmen, teachers, and all of those things, we stopped desiring to clean houses and work on farms and be an orange farmer and do all of those jobs and a lot of the labor jobs. So who replaces you doing those jobs? Every time they go on the tangent of jobs being taken, it's not like an illegal immigrant is coming and becoming a doctor tomorrow. When does an illegal immigrant come into the country and become a policeman or become a school teacher or become a college professor like the next week? So what are we talking about? This that's always a cycle. When it's not illegal immigrants, it's going to be someone else.
And our birth rates are going down. We've seen other countries go through this cycle of collapsing populations. And, the one thing that really saves America is the fact that people do want to move here, right? Despite Trump's best efforts, we still have people that are showing up wanting to be here.
Well,
And so
my
we
argument,
keep,
Dave, is, dude, that's great, but do it legally.
we had a whole episode on this, right?
Dave, I got to speak for people that are going to be
right.
watching, and they're going to scream at the TV. That's great, but do it legally. Your response.
Okay, well, but they don't. Most of them don't even know the legal process. Because to claim or request asylum, you have to cross the border.
Right. Which, by the way, is not illegal immigration. To come and claim asylum is actually legally going through the process. And we've said that, we need to fix legal immigration. And, but we haven't. It's very difficult. Because George Bush tried to do it, right? W tried to do this. This is a long time ago. And we haven't moved forward on that. And again, if you fix legal immigration, you might be able to clamp down on illegal immigration, right? So yeah, I got no problem. I'm not saying we should keep illegal immigration going. That's ridiculous, because now we have people who are, second-class citizens who are living here in fear. We want people that come in, are legally here, are gonna be here, are gonna pay my Social Security, by God, because I need to retire at some point. And we need to have people coming into the population to keep the workforce going and to avoid inflation. There's a lot of things that a growing workforce helps you do. And so, yeah, we should fix legal immigration. And guess what? If we fix legal immigration, we're probably not going to have as much trouble with the illegal immigration.
But it's also unfair, because illegal immigrants, according to the president, former president, illegal immigrants come into this country and they vote Democrat.
No, they don't.
I didn't even know they could vote, but that's okay.
No, they can't.
But hey,
that's right up there with we're giving them houses and free healthcare. They had some dude. I saw a clip online of some dude who got off his cruise ship in Mexico and was joking, "Hey, I'm in Mexico. Maybe I should walk. If I walk home, maybe I'll get free healthcare." Right? And so he's all coming into this thing that if he's an illegal immigrant, and as one person pointed out, you're in Mexico where free healthcare is in their constitution. And it also just, so the stunning ignorance of folks is, well, I guess stunning.
It's like when they're in a country that they don't understand that housing is given to the citizens by the government. A lot of Middle Eastern countries are like that, where housing is paid for by the government. You look at the things that, this is off topic, but Alaska is a model that I wish a lot of states were able to do, on how they pay citizens back and how they do certain things for citizens based on the revenue that Alaska makes from oil. Isn't that a novel concept? But moving back to the debate, what is your bone to pick with any particular response? And then we'll get into some positives.
That's a Harold question.
Pre you falling asleep. You know what? Next debate, we're doing live watch. It'll be in delay, because we can't play it exactly when it's happening, because I'll get sued.
If there's another debate.
If there's another, yeah. One has requested, the other one has not accepted yet. So we'll see how that goes and how that flows.
Vice presidential debate. I can't wait.
Oh God, that's going to be horrendous. Another debacle. But no,
Dave can't stop. I'm sorry.
I'm just
Dave,
picturing it in my head. I'm sorry.
well, here's the thing. I came in today wanting to be super serious. I was even going to put on a jacket. And then I just started watching clips again, and I was like, I can't be serious today, but I'm gonna try. Go ahead, Harold. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I mean, just the demeanor, the whole attitude, looking at, the cameras when one's talking,
Mhm.
the demeanor of the other person and how they're listening to that response and their, facial expressions was, for me, was a real turnoff. And well, by one candidate, I'll say that, because the other one sometimes would just laugh in their face. And I think that further frustrated them with respect to the whole experience. But when it came to, again, just answering questions and the over talking, the rudeness that began to erupt, and again, this was early on, into the whole process. So as it got worse and worse, I became more and more, or less and less interested. But I think for me, it was just the over talk and him trying to really control the narrative, as opposed to focusing on giving a proper response and telling somebody what your policy is outside of tariffs. I mean, it seems that tariffs is going to be his focal point from this point moving forward. He's not talking about building the wall again and getting Mexico to pay for it. He's not talking about, even the whole thing with inflation and trying to say that about his economy. It just going back and looking at the fact checking on that and what transpired, when he left, where were we with inflation versus, after, for example, the Inflation Reduction Act was passed in 2022, and things got back in order for the most part. But just again, I was just losing my whole interest in the debate, and I actually started not to watch it. So I'm glad I did see part
I
of it.
got to defend people who aren't here to defend their guy, Harold. Now, you said there was disrespect. Someone pointed out on Facebook there was disrespect on her side too because she didn't want to be called names, but she was name calling because she called him a liar 2 times.
Oh my
Okay,
goodness! Oh my
she
gracious!
was name calling. She did call him a liar. Dave, your response because you're our war expert. He said everyone was scared of him. China was scared. Russia was scared. Iran was scared. North Korea was scared. Everyone was scared. Russia was scared. Russia was your buddy. But you go,
Right,
these
right.
countries were scared. And first of all, if anybody thinks China is scared of them, you're delusional.
Oh
Okay?
God!
China's not scared of anybody.
None of it, our adversaries weren't scared of him. Our allies were. And that tells you all you need to know. But he tried to, at one point in his Afghanistan discussion, talking about the Taliban, he mentioned something about sending a guy a picture of his house. And the legend is that they sent the Taliban leader a picture of his house, of where he lived, and said, we'll put a bomb in there if you don't do things. Um, and I've had this thrown at me in comments on TikTok and other places. And it's supposed to be his a big tough guy. And um, it's not like he's the first president to do that. It's also, not that he had any capability, but he couldn't even get that out, right? He can't even get that out to say, oh, here it is. This is what I said. And I think you saw his utterly, he's in denial of his responsibility for the deal in Afghanistan. And as is typically the case with Trump, he is saying, "Oh, you guys had this deal. The deal should have been stopped because the Taliban didn't do things they were supposed to do during the deal." He is blaming Biden and Harris for that. Now, keep in mind, he wrote a deal that would go from February of one year, February 2022. It was going to go from February 2020 till May of 2021. And he is, basically the president for most of that time. It is during that time that the Taliban, when he was president, the Taliban were not doing the things they said they do. They were not going back on things. And we know this because, and he kept going down, right? He kept bringing the troop levels, the U.S. troop levels down as if the Taliban were in compliance with the agreement. And the House Armed Services Committee passed a resolution calling for the Trump, calling for the Trump administration to hold American troop levels at 8,900 because the Taliban weren't doing what they said they were going to do. And Trump dropped it down to where we had 2,500 troops. I believe it's 25, 35. We had way less than that 8,500 when they left. And so accusation is confession. When it comes to the strong men, right? He's in denial that he has these love letters with Kim, and he's like, "Oh, Kim, everything was wonderful with Kim." No, it isn't. You didn't solve anything. You didn't get a deal with him, right?
Right.
In fact, you abrogated the deal with Iran, the nuclear deal. So you pulled out of these deals. So you didn't achieve anything there. You went and propped up Kim Il Jong and made him, or Kim Jong Un, and made him, gave him credibility that he never had. And then, in his answer, I just loved it when she said, "Oh, the world is laughing at you," because this is true, right? We know he likes to say the world laughs at us and the world laughs at Kamala. We've got video of world leaders laughing at him in public, but privately, there's a lot of this. Yes, he's an idiot, and people think they don't understand what's going on. But then what I loved is she says that, hey, you are, cozying up with strong men, and you are vulnerable to their flattery. And in response, he then quotes a strong man, Viktor Orban, who is taking Hungary back, doing exactly what we're afraid that Donald Trump will do in terms of dismantling the democratic institutions in a country. And so Viktor Orban is taking Hungary down a road towards dictatorship. And Trump quotes him, praising
Yep.
Trump, right?
Yep.
And so it was just this thing of like, it's all there if you know who Viktor Orban is, if you know a little bit about what happened. It's all right there to see.
That's part of the problem. Supporters of this guy, and I don't, again, let me stop because I can be dangerous. I can canvass a lot of people, and I try not to generalize. We know there's some people who are actually smart. We know there's some people who are actually good citizens and doing things, but they're just Trump supporters, and I don't know why. That's a whole different discussion. But a
They don't
lot
believe
of
it.
the ones that you hear from don't know the people that he references, don't know the history of the people that he references. They just hear what he says and they take it and they run with it.
Mm-hmm.
They take it. A lady posted because someone called JD Vance a weirdo. So of course she posts a picture of a man in a dress, two lesbians with a baby, someone with the pro-choice sign, and said, "These weirdos are calling JD Vance a weirdo." And I'm just like, what? I just, and then if you bring to them, hey, statistically, did you know that children that are raised in same-sex marriages have done statistically better than children raised in heterosexual marriages? Their head would explode. Well, they'll say that's a false statistic. So it's
Big
just
news.
it's banging your head against the wall. No, well, fake news and old news is conveniently used when it's a fact check for him. That's old news.
Right.
You know.
And what's frustrating is it's not the Trump supporters that we've got to have, right? Realize this, right? We can, they drank the Kool-Aid, okay, and bought the hat, you know. It's the independents, it's the undecideds. And, part of your problem there is the people who are undecided tend to be the people that don't have a lot of connection with politics. They don't pay attention to it. They don't know that much about it. It's not, if you're an avid follower of politics, if you are an avid football fan, it's very likely that you have a team that you like. right? It's very likely you've decided who, because you pay a lot of attention to it. If you don't follow the game, if you know very little about it, you might say, yeah, I guess I root for the hometown team, but and so that's why part of your problem here is the people that we need to reach, or that Kamala Harris needs to reach to sway to her side, that very small number of people who are undecided. They don't know who Victor Orban is, right? Almost by definition, because they're not news junkies, right? That's probably not their vibe. They have other things they're worried about in life, which is perfectly reasonable and fine for them. But suddenly they're important to us. They're going to decide the election. And that's always the difficulty we have here. And it's frustrating to people who are more avid followers of politics, I think.
Harold?
Well, it is scary, when you look at the fact that, in spite of all that's transpired up to this point, and this is outside of the debate where we're looking at the indictments, the charges, the convictions, and all of those things, that this race is even as close as it is. That tells me that people have already pretty much dug their heels in for the most part. And we got to pray that there's individuals of sound mind, i.e. predominantly independents, that are going to say, wait a minute, we can't allow what potentially could happen, like as David described, that's going on in Hungary, to happen here in the United States. It just shouldn't happen. And so with that understanding, prayerfully, as we move forward in this process of educating people about the candidates, what their platforms are, and what they may potentially be looking to do moving forward, we want to do what we can to try to make sure everybody understands the dangers that could befall us, and the fact that democracy could be lost forever and a day if people don't get out and vote. But going back to the debate, again, looking at the mood and the temperament, and it just seemed that there was a lot of anger and angst that was conveyed by one candidate versus the other candidate, who seemed to be much more cordial and shall we say, cooperative or quiet to a certain extent.
Joyful.
You know who I actually feel sorry for in all of this? Joe Biden.
The voters.
You know why I feel sorry for Joe Biden? Joe Biden had to step down, and it's not because Joe Biden did something wrong. Joe Biden had to step down just because Joe Biden is old, which is that's why I feel bad for him. He didn't do anything. There's no, law. There's no lawsuits. There's no crimes committed. And I was actually glad that I did not have to watch a debate where he had to try to mutter through a debate with Donald Trump, because I think, and against my personal opinions, I think if Joe Biden would have had a debate last night against Donald Trump, it would have made a lot of people vote for Donald Trump and the independent side. Dave, can you try to explain to us again? Because again, people like me and Harold, we rack our heads and I can't figure it out. What is the appeal? What is the appeal of Donald Trump?
Well, it depends on who you're talking about. There are a lot of people on the right who are in, we have that Tea Party faction that felt that the country was slipping away from them. They didn't recognize the country anymore. They are seeing a lot of their identity. It's basically right-wing identity politics. You have a lot of people who, they have an idea of the country. They have they're bound up. Their identity is bound up with it. And a lot of people have an authoritarian orientation, in that, and what I mean, that they like to have unity, right? And so they like to be part of something bigger than themselves. They like to see other people stand up with them, and in fact, the authoritarian personalities and dispositions are uniform. I mean, throughout all ethnic groups, and but amongst white people, there's this attachment to certain symbols in the country. And, obviously when Obama's elected, you have somebody who doesn't look like them. And they're increasingly perceiving that the country is moving away, and they're seeing their social status slip. And I think that has always been a part of it. We have to factor in things like, look, the news media, right? We have seen media go off in directions. The people that support Donald Trump are not getting the same news that we're getting. They don't even get the same TikTok, right? They're scrolling through different TikToks. And so we've got all these echo chambers up. And make no mistake, I'm in an echo chamber. And I've been hearing people talk about all this momentum from Kamala Harris. And I'm looking at the polls going, I'm so sorry, but that's not it. So you're lying to me and it's the same thing. You want to feel good about your side. You want to, give people things that they are going to like. And so we're feeding people the kinds of things they like. A lot of conservatism is also based off of fear, right? You fear change, you fear what's out there, and you fear the new dangers that you don't understand in the world, whether it be, when Obama's elected, we have globalization, we have all these things.
Dangerous.
We have lots of things to fear. So what do? We build a cocoon of symbolism and attachment to greater values. We try to identify enemies, portray those enemies, and we identify our in-group with a set of values, right? In the war on terror, it was freedom. They attacked us because they hate our freedom, right? So they hate our freedom. They're freedom haters.
Fear mongering. So I was taught change is good, but what I'm learning is, I guess, change is bad. Harold, when you walk outside of that house that I've known that you've lived at since I was a kid, and I'm 46 years old, it doesn't look like it did back in 1985 and 1995 and 2005, does it?
No, it does not.
Has that shifted? Does that mean everything's falling apart around you?
Well, I think part of the problem that we have is, and it's interesting, I was just having a conversation about this earlier today. When we look at America, how do we define America? I mean, because when I look at my community, a lot of things are different. My neighbors now are not the same neighbors that I grew up around and grew up playing with, their children and their grandchildren. I got a lot of private fences or privacy fences that have been erected around me and across the street from me. So it's a totally different community now. And I don't understand this, as I think it was General Milley said, this experiment we call America. 1 minute we're a melting pot, and in the melting pot, all of whatever's in the pot either connects or interconnects in some way, shape, or form to form something new, something different. My friend this morning, when we were having our conversation, he kept using the reference of America being like a salad. I said, well, I have a problem with that reference because the ingredients of a salad really don't mesh together. They just stand on top of each other. Now, when you put them in the pot, your mouth, or wherever, now you can crunch them, chew them, and now their flavors can go back and forth. I said, I always viewed America as almost like a pot with stew in it, where you put the ingredients in, and as they heat up, the essence from one ingredient will go and mix itself with the other ingredient. And I said, that's what I've always viewed America as, but obviously my view of America differs greatly. And his view, and he happened to be a gentleman who was Jewish, his view was more of the salad, more so than the stew.
Well, I can agree with salad because I go to Chopped and they chop it all up, so it's all mixed up. So
No, it's mixed up. Now I'm saying we're mixed up. Guess what? My neighbors and I'm black. They're Hispanic. This one's black. That one's. We're mixed up, but we're not. We're still not interconnected. Our flavors aren't connected to one another, so to speak. And so what I'm saying is, if we're going to be this united force, if we're going to be these United States, we got to find a way to unite Now, once you chop that tomato, the essence from the inside of that tomato will go throughout that salad, the juices, etc. That's what I'm getting at when I'm talking about either those items being stacked on top of each other, or they're allowing their essence, those flavors, those things to come together to create that beautiful, I guess, final product that's going to be very flavorful, that's going to be tasty, and it's going to be enjoyable. But America has lost that because there's some people that don't want their essence shared with other groups. They want to be isolated. They want to be here. They deem that America belongs to them. And those are the ones that are primarily upset about the experiment not going the way that they wanted to go. So I think we got to step back and look at what do we expect America to be or become, because we've always presented it as one thing, and then when that one thing begins to manifest itself, some people want to pull back from that and go back to the more separatist or segregationist type of America that we once had.
Well, we may not figure it out. A friend of mine said the other day, he goes, the problem is you guys, meaning America, is not even half a century old yet. He said, it took my country 1,200 years to figure it out. He said, you keep forgetting you're a baby. You're a baby country. I'm like, okay, I kind of see what you're saying, but, I like to think we're a lot more sophisticated than your country was when it started 1,200 years ago. But,
There ain't no one 1,200 years old in any particular country, so I question the continuity.
No, not his age, Dave. The
No,
country.
well, I'm just saying, it's what you could say your country is 1,200 years old, but
That doesn't make it
how
1,200
much
years
does that really, your society is constructed on things that, change and are renegotiated over time. And so I don't necessarily buy that there's this linear accumulation of cultural understanding and meaning.
You hope it doesn't take that long. That's what you're trying to say.
There's no one 1,200 years old, right? You're teaching kids. I'm just saying, every year you're teaching kids stuff. So, so I'm a little skeptical of those arguments. Sorry.
Do you have any responses to what Harold just laid out?
No, Harold's good. You asked me to try to explain Trump voters, and so I gave you some social science word salad, and then the salad versus. I will say one thing that, when I worked at the railroad, and this was prior to Trump, and I had a bunch of old white guys. Okay, and so I got the Trumpers, and I got people who didn't like Trump but became Trumpers, and one guy who I really sad. He was a friend, and then he just started being so nasty about things. I had to say no more. He made a comment about, back in the day when people would move here, when immigrants would come here, they would try to be like us. They would try to assimilate. They try to become American. Today, people come in and they want to not be like us. They want to keep their own. I don't know what word he used. They didn't. I don't think he had identity in there, but and that in a lot of ways went to this thing of art, and in that I see the salad versus the stew, right? That Harold's talking about. The salad is everyone comes in. We have lots of diversity, but I get to keep being Venezuelan or Hungarian or whatever my identity is, and I don't necessarily give up these things. I'm allowed to maintain them. And then this guy was saying, no, you become American, you buy into it, you become like us. And that's the stew. As you added to the stew, you change the flavor, perhaps. This is the old melting pot thing. And I don't know what to do. I think it's an interesting comparison. I like the metaphor here. And I'm just going to let the salad sit, and I'll let the stew, stew.
You keep it. That's how you not lose your heritage over generations. I always feel bad when I have friends of different ethnicities and they can trace their lineage back and they can talk about customs and they can talk about all these things. And I don't. I can't. I can talk about my parents being from Miami and their parents being from Georgia and Mississippi and their parents being from Georgia and Mississippi and their parents being from wherever. And that's where it ends. There's no heritage line that I can trace back and talk about. Yeah, I can do the DNA and all that stuff, but this is natural stuff that they already know. Being able to speak English and their native language, being able to celebrate American holidays and their holidays. Like, what's so terrible about that? you know, we've seen the videos where people get upset because Harold and I might be from Venezuela, so we're having a conversation in a coffee shop in our native tongue, and someone gets outraged because we're not speaking in English. You're not a part of our conversation anyway. Why do you care? So it's very weird to me, and it's a psychological thing to why people go to so much depths to care about what other people's heritage that they want to keep, other people's languages, other people's orientation. All this stuff is just, baffling and crazy to me. Like, you can be a Hungarian American, you can be a Venezuelan American. You don't have to just be an American. They call us African Americans. Dave, are you an Irish American or are you just an American?
Oh man, you did not just. Oh, generations of my family are turning over in their graves. Oh my God. No, I really do. I come from a lot of people who my grandmother wasn't allowed to go to a prom with a guy because he was Irish. I mean, because they were discriminated against. It goes, the measure of difference in our country has changed a lot, right? When the fact that you were Catholic was a big deal, right? And today it's Christians, right?
I remember. I'm sorry, Dave. I remember watching a movie, and I cannot remember. It was when I was little, and I didn't understand it at the time. The father was upset with the daughter, and she thought he was upset because her boyfriend that she was trying to date was black. And he's like, I don't care that he's black. I care that he's Catholic. And I was like, what? I was like 7 years old. I was so confused.
And that was my grandmother. When my sisters would date, I'm from New Jersey, so I was not a hyphenated guy, right? But we had a lot of Italian Americans in our, it's New Jersey, right? And I remember my grandmother, just whenever my sisters would date an Italian, she'd freak out, right? Because they're Catholic, and you'll have to raise the babies Catholic, and we're all like, babies, but going to the prom. And so, and then the casual, if not racism, ethnic, prejudices were always there, and so. But yeah, I don't have a hyphen because my family has been around, and there's just too much. We're just the people that showed up and cut down the trees and killed people that were already here. So yeah, that's my heritage.
Harold, did you hear that part?
Yes, we're the oppressors, damn it. All right, someone had to do it.
You did say you had ancestors on the Mayflower, didn't you?
Yes. Absolutely. John Alden. I'm descended from two of his. That's one of my.
You know what? That's the reason why I'm scared to do a heritage, Harold. Because if I do it and I find out that one of Dave's great 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 grandfathers owned my great 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 grandfather, we're gonna have a problem.
You're probably safe from that.
Depends on where they're located.
Safe from that.
You guys stayed up north. You didn't venture down to the southern area.
We were not that. We wore blue during the Civil War.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. I know that for a fact. So.
All right. He made sure to get that detailed. All right. So we're about to wrap up. Let's get some final thoughts on the presidential debate that you witnessed All of it that you witnessed, Dave, and half of it that you witnessed. Dave, I'll let you go first, and then we'll go to Harold.
Yeah, I think I said it. What we saw was a master class. Kamala Harris came in and owned the debate. To my mind, she demonstrated mastery of that situation. And I have basically every criticism leveled against her. I look at and go, well, she might not have done what she wanted, but she did it for a reason that showed she knew what she was doing. That would be my take, my personal opinion. You can feel differently. It's okay. But no notes for her. And the other guy was just himself. He was inept and spewing lies, and it was the most lopsided thing imaginable. The worst versus the best. I've never seen somebody own a debate quite like that Kamala Harris did.
Harold?
Well, again, based on what I saw, like I said, it was almost like uh, two different entities, almost sharing their visions or what their visions of America, and one was clear, or one's much clearer and more concise than the other, whereas the other seems to be conveying more grievances or sharing his grievances with the people, as opposed to telling the people how they will benefit from his leadership. Whereas her goal was to make sure that she kept things focused on her agenda, her platform. And yeah, every now and then she threw some bait out there or threw the hook out there for him to take a chunk of. And he bit it, and it wasn't to his benefit. It was always to his detriment. And sadly, he was, I think, too emotionally involved or too emotionally charged to realize what was happening in the moment, because he saw it as a potential gotcha moment, when in reality he got himself caught in a net that was cast, and saw no way to get out. But I'm starting to realize in a way, I think it was something that Dave said earlier, is there real value in debates? What are we doing? What are they doing? Why are we here? Because we realize that we can be told anything at any point. That doesn't make it the gospel. It doesn't make it true. It doesn't make it, even uh, something that we need to put our faith in. But nonetheless, this is part of the system that we do have right now. This is how this system tends to operate. And prayerfully moving forward, we can make sure the best candidate that's going to save democracy and hopefully do what's in the best interest of the people will be raising their right hand in January.
Well, to answer your question, what's the purpose of having a debate and why do we watch them? I'll tell you this. I took a shot every time he told a lie and I was blitzed off my ass. Good night.
I bet you were.